For years, fans of the Trails series have enthusiastically looked forward to new games in the series, but admittedly it's been a bit of an exclusive club for longtime fans thanks to the fact that the games build off of each other and you get the most bang out of a new game in the series having played all the ones before it. As the years have gone by, the first game in the series, Trails in the Sky, has just become increasingly outdated as innovations in user interface, graphics, and presentation in the newer games have made it less and less attractive to play for newcomers to the series. Since the game's original release in Japan on Windows in 2003, there have been 7 versions of the game floating around, including a remaster on the Vita, The Legend of Heroes, Trails in the Sky FC Evolution, that updated the UI, added voice acting, and added a new animated opening cutscene to the game. Unfortunately, the most modern improved versions of the game never got official Western localizations. The West's only opportunities to play this game were on the Sony PSP in 2011 and on Windows in 2014, and although the Windows version does have some improvements, both of these games are ports of the original 2003 release. Even as a stinky old man who has played every game in the series in English as soon as I could, I'm not so snobbish as to believe everyone can appreciate a JRPG with pixel art, top-down design, and an absence of voice acting like I can in 2025. Nihon Falcom, also realizing this, has finally decided to do something about it. A ground-up, full-on 3D remake of Trails in the Sky called Trails in the Sky First Chapter is set to release on September 19, 2025. This remake is bringing all of the great modern series innovations to the first game, including voice acting, seamless transitions between the overworld and towns, and a fluid hybrid action and turn-based battle system. I wouldn't be surprised if they snuck a fast-forward option in there too. Now, I can't tell you how this remake looks to somebody who has never played a Trails game in their life, since I'm tainted having played all of the games. But as a fan of the series, the marketing for this game has been absolutely brilliant. Almost scene for scene in some cases, Falcom has managed to reproduce the magic of the original game in 3D, with the strength of 3D on full display with the voice acting and character expressions. The most recent promotional trailer for the remake even remade the original promotional trailer for the original game, music and all. Even playing Trails in the Sky in English for the first time 8 years after its original Japanese release in 2003, it was still a memorable game. The second game, which I have no doubt is currently being remade into 3D as well, was even more amazing. To put that 8-year time gap into perspective with the historical releases of notable JRPGs, the Japanese version of this game released around the same time as games like Grandia 2, Star Ocean Till the End of Time, Tales of Symphonia, Kingdom Hearts, Breath of Fire 4, and Shin Megami Tensei 3. By the time the game released officially in English 8 years later, it was competing with the likes of Golden Sun, Dark Dawn, Kingdom Hearts, Birth by Sleep, Metal Max 3, Nier, and Xenoblade Chronicles. Even coming off of those modern JRPGs, Trails in the Sky aged well enough to still be an amazing experience on the PSP. Anecdotally, by 2011, the Trails series in Japan was already full speed ahead, with the last game in the Crossbell duology and the 5th game in the series, Trails to Azure, having just been released. I remember joking with my friends who were also playing Trails in the Sky for the first time in 2011 that to the Japanese fans we were like normies, 5 games behind on the series. And here I am in 2025 teasing all my friends enjoying Uma Musume Pretty Derby for the first time by reminding them the game's already been out in Japan for 4 years now. Anyways, there are a few things that make Trails in the Sky special. Notably, its attention to detail with the characters and history in the game beyond just the protagonists and antagonists. Trails in the Sky was notorious for having over 1.5 million Japanese characters in the script to localize into English. This was the primary reason people thought for years that the original game would never be translated into English until Xseed picked up the rights. But all this text enriched the world of the game, developed characters that would appear in later games, and sold the effects of events in the game having an impact on the world. The dialogue of NPCs would frequently change between important events in the story too. I think the dialogue was great in general, but admittedly I mostly didn't talk to people unless I needed to in order to proceed with the game. If I talked to everyone, it probably would have added a good 10 more hours to the game for me, and for me it was a bit too much for characters who largely had no impact on the main story of the game. But knowing every NPC had a name, a background, and a place in the world did wonders for the world building. The game also has a fun in-game novel to introduce characters that appear in far future games and newspaper articles of current events which add good flavor text for reading. Nihon Falcom did so good with the writing that even some characters who weren't meant to be much more than normie NPCs got a bigger presence in future games due to their popularity with fans. And it wasn't uncommon for players of future games in the series to look forward to seeing their favorite NPCs or villains appear again in later games the way the first game was written. They have this way of giving characters nicknames that let you know they're special. Names like Sword Saint, Heretic Hunter, Direwolf, Blade Lord, Black Fang, or Scarecrow to name a few. Nihon Falcom also writes interesting side quests with characters and themes that continue or repeat entertainingly into future future games. The game world itself sort of puts the main characters in their own power tiers fans love to gush about. Since Trails in the Sky is about Estelle's coming of age as a bracer, for example, in the bracer world the pinnacle is S-rank bracer, so fans tend to judge the strength of characters based on how well their strength is perceived by S-rank bracers, or how well characters can fight against an S-rank bracer in a duel. This tiering follows with the other organizations outside the Bracers Guild too. You'll frequently see fans of the series discuss 100% civilly, logically, respectfully, and with the power of love and friendship with each other about the strength tiers of their favorite characters. Definitely no toxicity. Jokes aside though, one of the things Falcom loves to do that has worked really well narratively for the series is to introduce innocent, seemingly weak characters hiding their true identities who turn out to be more than what they initially appear later in the games. To go along with the writing, Nihon Falcom also set high standards for the series with its soundtrack. While I personally prefer the more electronica-laced tracks of modern Trails games, Trails in the Sky still has a solid and very fitting soundtrack. In fact, the soundtracks to all the Trails games are great. I don't think Falcom has ever had a bad soundtrack to any of their Legend of Heroes games. If you continue with the series, you'll recognize what's going on just by the songs that play too, as they are associated with organizations and important characters. Another thing that made Trails in the Sky special was its storytelling. A lot of game companies don't dare design their games to have obvious sequels because they don't know how well their games will sell. A lesson even Tetsuya Takahashi, as legendary as he is, learned the hard way with Xenosaga while he was working with Bandai Namco. Trails in the Sky First Chapter, however, was designed around continuing its story in the next game. In fact, you can even see that the entire game takes place in a very small part of the Zemurian continent that makes up the current setting of the entire series. If you talk to NPCs and pay attention to the history developed in the world building, you'll hear about a lot of events that took place before the beginning of the story that have more relevance in future games in the series. I won't say much more about the story other than that if you complete the game, you'll probably be really excited to play the next game in the series. And even as someone who completed this game 14 years ago, I'm really looking forward to how the story plays out in 3D. During the game, Estelle and Joshua earn bracer ranks by answering dialogue choices correctly and taking correct actions. While I like how these choices play out narratively, from a gameplay perspective, it could be frustrating because there was little to maybe no leeway in your choices. If you didn't choose all the correct options, or maybe you didn't pay attention to the dialogue as well as you should have, so you make a wrong choice, you'd miss out on being able to attain the highest bracer ranking at the end of the game and miss out on awesome items. On top of that, the game also had hidden bracer missions too. For me, this just encouraged the use of a gameplay guide because there's no way I'm going to play a 40 to 80 hour game again just to recover missables I could have avoided using a guide in the first place. This remake might change things to give more leeway like the modern Trails games do, and I really think it should because I think those missables in general were one of the bigger low points of earlier Trails games in general. This job ranking gameplay mechanic has been inherited in most of the games and evolved throughout later games in the series to what Van Spriggan alignment system has become in the Calvert Arc if you've played those games. Another standard gameplay element this game establishes for the series is the quartz and orbment system. Each character has a unique orbment grid that can be filled with quartz that grants stats, and can be linked to get points towards learning orbal arts, which are the Trails series equivalent to magic. This was a foundation game, so it doesn't have all the crazy innovations that have been developed across numerous games, but it's going to be more than enough coupled with the game's hybrid battle system, especially for someone like me who got sick of playing quartz Tetris among 3 parties in the most recent Trails game. Each character also has their own unique skills called crafts that can be learned and powered up through leveling up. When enough craft points have been accumulated, characters can perform their powerful unique S-crafts, which can also cut in line in the game's active time bar to steal bonuses or wipe out enemies before they get a turn. The active time bar shows the turn order in battle, and various bonuses appear on the bar that can do things like make arts cast instantly at 0 cost, guarantee critical hits, or increase the amount of Sepith obtained for hitting an enemy with an attack on a given turn. Sepith is sold to obtain Mira, which is the game's currency used in shops. Colored Sepith can also be traded in for quartz services in orbment shops. The 3D conversion of this game has apparently doubled its length from 40 to 80 hours, which doesn't surprise me at all considering that was about the same for the 3D conversion of Romancing Saga Revenge of the Seven too. I think the game's new hybrid battle system will definitely smooth out the pacing of Trails in the Sky First Chapter better, since you'll probably be able to wipe out the lobies in faster action combat. combat. As I mentioned in my most recent Trails video, a thorough playthrough of Trails Beyond the Horizon took me 96 hours, so that 80-hour gameplay time sounds about right for a 3D Trails game. Remakes and remasters are always hit or miss for me. When they don't change much, they're obviously geared more towards players who miss the opportunity to play the originals on outdated hardware, like Final Fantasy Tactics. When remakes do change things, they risk alienating older fans who don't vibe with the changes, like Final Fantasy VII and Tactics Ogre Reborn may have. Trails in the Sky First Chapter falls into the perfect category for me, like Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven, where they upgrade the graphics, UI, and tweak the gameplay to the standards of the latest games in the series, but leave the story largely the same. There are a few story tweaks I noticed, as it seems like some characters are introduced a little differently in this game than in the original, but other than that, I'll just have to play the game to see more changes. Obviously, Falcom isn't going to spoil the entire game in its advertising. I'd say Trails in the Sky First Chapter is in an even more ideal position than Romancing Saga 2, since fans of the series who have played the Calvard games will be able to comfortably adjust to the new gameplay systems, whereas I don't think too many people paid attention to the Romancing Saga series until the second game's amazing remake was released late last year. And for anybody who has never played a Trails game coming into this one, and I'm sure there will be plenty of them, they'll be lucky enough to experience a brand new game with fresh modern JRPG mechanics. In short, I think Trails in the Sky First Chapter has the potential to sell a ton of copies and bring the series more into the mainstream with how hype it has become for people over the years. The popularity of anime over the past decade has exploded too, and the game's style really jives with many fans of anime. I also know there are a lot of people who have been hesitant to start the series due to its massive time investment and the datedness of the first game. While the Trails series is still a massive time investment as a whole, at least the first game is an excellent introduction to the series that puts no pressure on players who have played any other game in the series first. Trails in the Sky First Chapter isn't the best JRPG ever made in my opinion, but it is to a lot of people, and I can understand why. Personally, I think the next game in the series, Trails in the Sky Second Chapter, is a lot better as it involves more characters and organizations that have significance to the series as a whole and moves the plot forward. However, if I were to make a list of JRPGs everybody, regardless of their taste in video games, should play, Trails in the Sky First Chapter would be on that list. My thumbnail is not clickbait. I genuinely believe everybody who plays video games should play this game. It's the strong first game in the longest running JRPG series of connected games that has maintained a consistent level of quality for over 20 years and is still relevant today. If the game draws you in to the end, you will probably enjoy every other game in the series that comes after it too. In fact, this game narratively has some of the best ending scenes I've ever seen in a JRPG, but you'll have to play through the game yourself to see why I say that. It's so good, you'll wish you can just play the 3D remake of the second chapter immediately. I have a feeling Nihon Falcom will be remaking the rest of the Trails in the Sky games and the Crossbell duology in the future too, as those games are all still in 2D. And assuming they do those games like they did this one, I'll be happy to purchase and play those games day one too. Trails in the Sky First Chapter will be the first worldwide release for the Trails series, meaning the West won't have to wait years after the initial release in Japan to play it. The game will be released on September 19, 2025 on the PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and on Steam. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.